Today on a live edition of Collider Movie Talk, Rise of Skywalker reactions are in. And hey, there's a redo of The Dirty Dozen on the way as well from David Ayer and Simon Kinberg. And two dynamic duos, that's Lord Miller and Radio Silence, are getting together for a bear horror comedy revenant craziness. Anyway, we're talking about all of that today on a live edition of Collider Movie Talk. Thank you so much for taking the time this Tuesday morning to join us. I am sitting in for Perry Nemiroff, who's still recovering for being at that premiere at the Rise of Skywalker last night, having a great time, and who could blame her? It's the premiere of the last film of the Skywalker trilogy. I was like, cool, I'll handle movie talk. Don't you sweat it. You go have a good time. Premieres, that's for the young. Sleep, that's for the old. All right, anyway, let's jump in. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, but let's introduce our panelists here. Coy Jandreau, the host of Collider Heroes, with Amy Dallin. How are you, Coy?
Doing great, man. It is early, so we have not been the old guard yet with our sleep, but I'm excited to see what comedy bear thrillers have for us today.
Yeah, so much to get into. And my man over there, RB3, how are you, brother, man?
Thanks for having me back. Appreciate being here. I didn't get to see Star Wars early. I don't plan on seeing Star Wars early.
Yeah.
I'm watching it with the fans.
There it is. Your Christmas has come early already. Those Lakers are unstoppable.
Oh, yes.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know how this is happening. With no bench, somehow they're 19-1. I don't know how. It's incredible. You must be happy.
I'm very happy. Listen, this is the dynasty that Kobe Bryant set up originally. now we're here with LeBron back taking the crown. Very proud. Very proud.
Right on.
Cody's right there too. I know he's proud too.
Adam's a big fan too. Well, speaking of big get-togethers and big teams, the Star Wars team is a big team as well. They were looking forward to the end of their Skywalker saga here. And we have the first reactions. A lot of people went to the premiere last night. As you mentioned, Perry, Haley was there last night. Our own Wendy Lee, Dennis Zen. A lot of people were there last night from the Collider crew. Mark Ellis was there as well. The rest of us, or some of us, are going to see it today at different times throughout the day. Disney is very kind to put the film out with multiple screenings today for those of us in the sphere to get a chance to take a look at it and watch it. But let's jump in to some of these first reactions from people who were there last night. Our first reaction comes, I think, from our own Frosty Weinberg. That is Steve Weintraub. He said, I might be in the minority on the Rise of Skywalker. That's a first for him. I have a lot to say, but we'll wait till after it has opened. Very mysterious tweet from Frosty there. Our own Perry Nemiroff, she said, hashtag Rise of Skywalker has a bumpy start, but finds its footing. And when it does, it flies, especially the second half. Dug the conclusion of certain key storylines, things I didn't even think I wanted. Random big likes, the use of Rey's theme, lots of lightsabers, and Haley Fouch, who was there last night as Perry's +1, she said Rise of Skywalker is rocky at the start, but rocky AF at the start, so I want to give her props for the cussing there. But ultimately, I had a pretty darn good time at the movies. It's a whole lot of movie that ticks a lot of boxes, maybe too many boxes. It ticked many of mine. It may tick some of yours. There will be many opinions. This is one of them. And then Eric Davis said, epic. All of it. The Rise of Skywalker is a terrific finale that is just stuffed with so much of everything. Action, adventure, answers, humor, heart, love, and grit. I spent the entire second half with tears in my eyes. A wonderful way to end the Skywalker story. Coy, I go to you first now. This compilation, this first section of these reactions, what's your reaction to these reactions?
That is exactly what I thought we'd hear. You're coming out of a movie that is in between two movies. You've got a very, very, very fan service heavy Force Awakens. You've got a very, very controversial and polarizing Last Jedi. So I can't imagine JJ's thought process in general going through this movie that has to end a trilogy that is so different. Like, those two movies don't go together in a lot of people's minds. I like one of them more than the other. For the safety of my Twitter, I'll not say which one. You can guess. So I'm really curious how I feel about it, because the number one thing I saw was fan service, checking a lot of boxes. It seemed like they were going for the linear route, and I personally like to be surprised. I'd rather have a movie make me think and process things than just be like, well, I sure do like the sound of an X-Wing, so I'm a little worried we're going to get a TIE fighter sound effect for 2.5 hours and have that be enough for people, but we will see. I hope it surprises me. I can't wait to see it today. I love watching these movies. I just worry about how much controversy caused the movie to be shaped into something that's a lot more linear. Like this, to me, this feels like that fan service line we try to walk, where it's the fans are happy, but also the artist made something that's unique to them.
Yeah. RB3, your reaction to these, like this, as Coy said, there's a lot of fan service talk, a lot of talk about checking boxes, and Frosty leaving us a little mysterious, saying that he needs to wait till after it is opened. But it seems like what Perry and Haley were saying starts out kind of rocky, then finds its footing.
Right.
Did you sense that this is what we were going to get from this one?
Well, honestly, I'm actually kind of happy with the reactions.
Okay.
To me, I've always worried about J.J. Abrams as a filmmaker. He, even in the midst of himself, has a tough time with endings. So to the fact that a lot of people are saying the second half is where the movie picks up, there's some good conclusions, there's answers. That's very exciting to me, at least. And it's also exciting to see that. Listen. Last Jedi obviously divided the fan base. There's kind of like a splinter in people who like Last Jedi and don't like Last Jedi. At least I think in seeing these reactions, you're seeing kind of a lot of people who enjoy both films also enjoying this one. So at least that brings, hopefully that, to me, that means there's going to be a merger in the fan base back together. We could all enjoy Star Wars together again.
Some sort of balance to the Force.
Balance to the Force, exactly.
Well, before you get too keen on the balance of the Force, let's go on to the rest of these reactions. Eric Eisenberg, he said, I love Eric's tweets and his point of view on things. There is good in Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, but there is more that is disappointing. There are a number of choices that just don't track, fan service that doesn't work, and ignored details that are missed. I'm bummed. Let's move on to Scott Mendelson's tweet here. At worst, I expected The Rise of Skywalker to be a well-made movie that I didn't like or whose story choices I disagreed with. I was not expecting a genuinely bad movie with video game plotting, thin characters, weak action, and endless expositions of no consequence. Heartbreaking. Yeah. Scott's out of Forbes. Terry Schwartz, let's see what she has to say here. She said, I've seen Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Well, I sure hope so if you're tweeting. It's ... a lot. There's a lot I like and some I love, but overall my feelings are pretty mixed. It felt like an apology for The Last Jedi in some ways and a sequel to The Force Awakens in many, which I found frustrating. But just before you get too down, let's move on to Peter Soretta. He said his reaction. J.J. Abrams nailed it. He was able to bring a cohesive arc to this trilogy that feels like a fitting end to the saga as a whole. I'm so emotionally drained. Star Wars fans will be very happy. And Mark Ellis, let's see what he's got to say here. I'm emotional, overwhelmed, surprised, shocked, and stunned. More than anything, I'm happy. Thanks for coming through one more time. Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. All right, so let's deal with those middle kind of 3 or 4 tweets here that they felt, especially Mandelson's tweet that was very straightforward, that he just, it sounded like he absolutely hated the movie. Eric Eisenberg, a little more in the middle, but certainly on the disappointed side. Terry Schwartz saying that it's a lot. So I'm starting to see that in more and more of these tweets, that it's a lot. And we talked about checked boxes in the first section of tweets here. So it feels like, were they trying to shove too much into here and maybe too much overload for the fans? What do you think, RB3?
It's interesting for me, at least. One of the things that I noticed about The Last Jedi that I was a little off-putting was that it kind of answered a lot of the questions that The Force Awakens kind of set up.
Yeah.
So going into Rise of Skywalker, I was kind of like, well, what else are they going to kind of answer? Where else are they going to go from here? And it looks like, at least from these tweets, it looks like a lot of this movie spends a lot of time backtracking from Last Jedi and then going into the story that maybe JJ maybe originally planned.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why the pacing feels a little faster towards the end. Either way, I'm super excited to see where it goes. Like I said, I like Last Jedi. I like Force Awakens a whole lot. Force Awakens is actually my favorite of the new series. People say it's an homage to the original, but that's okay. That's good. I mean, that's the fact that we're introducing that to a new audience is brilliant. I just hope that this movie doesn't. I hope the sole intention of this movie wasn't just to crap on the last one, because that's not great storytelling.
Yeah, I wonder about, as I'm reading these tweets, Koy, it sounds to me like JJ is kind of like maybe only alluding to Last Jedi, but doing a sequel to Force Awakens with this movie. And if he's doing that, is that, like, how do we interpret it? Is that subtle shade from one filmmaker to another, or just the idea that Disney was like, no, we need to course correct here because people were so divisive over Last Jedi? And did they, by doing that, kind of sacrifice the overall boldness of where this trilogy could have gone?
I feel like they made a more linear story because of the fan kickback. I feel like no matter what, they wanted the fans to be happy, which is the job of a studio. You want to make money. So it does worry me that they have a really bold middle installment that they're kind of, it's my theory is that the first few minutes are retroactively trying to piece together what JJ did in 7, and the bumpiness in the beginning is trying to piece together what 7 and 8 can be, and then get back to the story he might have wanted to tell before. So I think the bumpiness might be trying to put the 7 and 8 together to make 9 even work. And I can't imagine, like I said, how hard that would be. I just worry that we're losing a bolder story we could have gotten if we weren't trying to course correct with this one. If you were trying to, like, it's like jazz. You play off the last solo. Like, you're trying to find the next round of music. Right. I don't want them to suddenly be like, make a bridge, go to the chorus, and then have the chorus be like, well, we heard the chorus already. Right. What I'm worried about is this just being a chorus. Like, I don't want to hear an 80s pop hit. I want to see something new.
Jazz is an interesting comparison, RB3. I think I like that idea because, great jazz, the next guy or next girl is picking it up and taking it, and you hope taking it to the next level, which inspires the next person to take it on and take it to the next level. But sometimes, if that next person doesn't really step up to the plate, the job of the next person is to kind of repair what just happened here and bring it back up. Do you sense that might be it?
I mean, that could be a big part of it. I mean, listen, Whiplash is a great movie because they quote the famous Charlie Parker where he threw a symbol at somebody said because they weren't keeping up. You have to keep up with the pace of what these movies are going for. And, obviously, it's kind of, it's a middling decision to not have a plan going into it. If you didn't have a full established storyline going into the trilogy, that can lead to conflicting ideas and stuff like that. But the fact that, thinking about trilogies overall, most trilogies have to allude to the first one and make homages to the first one. That's usually how trilogies are set up. The second one is usually a more standalone story anyway. But this feels like a serialized thing that they're going from point A to point B to point C. Now at least it feels like, at least according to these tweets, it's like point A to point B back to point A. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm here for it. Listen, I love Star Wars. I'm super excited for this. I really don't care what these tweets say. Like, I'm still going to see it. I have tickets for Thursday and Friday. So at the end of the day, you could be worried, but I think we gotta go into it optimistic.
Yeah. No matter what, it's gonna make a lot of money, and that's one of the reasons I wanted it to be bolder, is because no matter what, it would make the money. Like, no matter what, you've got a built-in infrastructure. Right. So I love me some Huey Lewis in the News, but I'd rather have like a good cipher. You know what I mean? I'd rather have something that's surprising and innovative and bold because they have the trusted audience. So I feel like a lot of people felt betrayed by the last one, but it still did exceedingly well, and you're gonna have more conversations because of that. So I'm just a little worried about a very mainstream film with the opportunity they had.
Don't be taking shots at Huey, man. Huey,
I love Huey. There's a mood for both. There's a mood for both. I'm a huge Huey Lewis fan.
Yeah, no, he did Hip to Be Square, but he also did Walking on a Thin Line. That's a little bit more of a different.
That's true. So which Huey are we getting? That's the question. I'm all about Hip to Be Square, but when I want, a little something darker.
I know, I get it. That's why they did Walking on a Thin Line, because they're like, you know what? This is more about an assassin. I love it. You never know. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Absolutely. I totally respect where you guys are coming from. We're all going to see it and make up our own minds. But it's always interesting to hear what, people who get to see it ahead of time. Scott Mantz, I want to bring this up because Mantz was initially very positive about it. But this morning he woke up with a thread. I hope I can bring it up here while we're talking about it live. He said, he originally said The Rise of Skywalker, really awesome, the best in the trilogy, really fun, lots of humor, a big heart, so many surprises. It's everything Star Wars fans are hoping for and more. A very satisfying conclusion, a lot of fan service, but I loved it. However, this morning he woke up and said, and then, by the way, I'm bringing this up because Scott is one of the charter members of the FYC show that we have going on that are doing that series with the ArcLight. He said, now that I slept on it, had time to process it, and the thrill has tapered, more thoughts on Rise of Skywalker. Overall, I really did love it. I was entertained. It's a lot of fun. I did not know where it was going. When it was over, I was happy and satisfied. But Star Wars is not a perfect movie. The plot is convoluted, and some of it feels forced and contrived. There's a lot going on in Rise of Skywalker. Too much, actually. For director JJ, if The Force Awakens equals Star Trek 2009, then Rise of Skywalker equals Star Trek Into Darkness.
Wow.
But when The Rise of Skywalker works, and most of the time it does, it's awesome. Lots of surprises and payoffs, fun action, and the cast has great chemistry. They're together a lot. Some Star Wars plot points echo both Empire and Return of the Jedi in a good way, and I love the fan service. Still, the greatest Star Wars movie of them all is Empire Strikes Back. So this is a little more, and sometimes people say that, tweeting right after you go to see a movie, the next day, maybe you don't feel so, your feelings or your thoughts change. But I think this is a nice balanced overall thought, right?
Yes.
Some things didn't work, but most of it did. I'm happy walking out of it. And isn't that what we all want out of this final installment in this Skywalker saga?
I feel like that's you took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, we all want to walk out of this happy. It may not be perfect. A lot of people say Return of the Jedi isn't perfect. The Ewoks are distracting. Sure. The backgrounds are a little too, fake. But to me, that's my favorite of the original. My favorite of the original trilogy. Obviously, Empire's the best, but I enjoy watching Return of the Jedi because it's the end of the story.
Right.
It's the conclusion. It's the finale. Something you've been waiting for the entire trilogy. And honestly, like if as long as they land it, as Scott said, they stick to landing most of the time. Even if sometimes it doesn't work. Not all of Force Awakens worked for me. Half of Last Jedi didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And as long as this has a majority of things that I like, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be more like I Need a New Drug or Back in Time for talking Huey Lewis references. So it's going to be leaning on some nostalgia. It's going to be making some bold choices. Some of it's going to work. But I do worry that as someone that really likes the bold choices of Last Jedi, it's going to be like, well, Yoda didn't really burn the temple down. I'm a little worried about like choices being made that are a little,
Yeah, I know there's a lot of questions with Leia, with Luke, with
the fan service.
And the fact that the three of them are together the whole time makes it seem like they're just going like, what did we read on that website? What do the blogs want? What do we want over here? Like, I don't want this to be a message board driven movie.
I think another thing that's interesting, and I know we got to move on to the next story, is that the Mandalorian episode drops tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Which is before everyone else is going to get to see the movie. So is that going to change people's opinions? If there's anything in The Mandalorian that connects up with Rise of Skywalker, is that going to like maybe change some feelings or change some opinions? We'll see. That's another thing to factor into. I'm going today, but I'm seeing Mandalorian obviously tomorrow night when it drops at midnight. I'm staying up to watch it, and we'll see if that connects up because I'm going again Thursday night to see it with 106 of my friends to go see Rise of Skywalker, which is nuts.
106?
Yeah, 100. This is our biggest crew we've ever gone to a Star Wars movie. So this is what lets you know like the excitement for it.
Yeah,
that people came and want to go, all of us, to have a communal experience. And that's what you can say at the end of the day. Good or bad, it still brings people together, this franchise, and that's a positive overall. And we'll see when we all get a chance to see it, what our thoughts are. And of course, Collider's going to have a non-spoiler review, a spoiler review, and I'm sure there'll be some ending explained or other videos coming down the pike with Star Wars. But if I was a Jumanji person, I'd be happy with this reaction because I'd be thinking, hey, the last time there's a little mixed, the reactions, my movie made $900 million. The way Jumanji started out now, it could go towards that billion that a lot of people have been predicting. Because I said on Movie Talk yesterday that if Rise of Skywalker is kind of a little bit of a middling thing, that this will only help Jumanji go to the next level.
The Rock's only gotten bigger. Kevin Hart's only gotten bigger. The last 2 years, those careers have only, and this one looks really inventive. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm really excited to.
Yeah, you should. It's good. It's fun.
I haven't seen it yet either.
Get in the theater, boys. This is good stuff. All right, let's move on to our next story, and that is Warner Brothers setting this David Ayer contemporized remake of The Dirty Dozen. I can't tell you how much I love The Dirty Dozen, or maybe I can. It's incredible. It's one of my favorite war movies ever. It's one I come back to all the time. I'm a big Lee Marvin fan, as Michael Madsen said in Reservoir Dogs, and I'm a huge fan of everybody in this movie. Ernest Borgnine, Charles Bronson still in his prime, Jim Brown doing one of his first movies, I think maybe even his first movie ever after he retired from the Cleveland Browns, John Cassavetes, who would go on to be one of the most incredible filmmakers in the 70s and 80s, Robert Ryan, who was still on the tail end of his badassery from the 50s and 60s, Telly Savalas, who loves you, baby, Robert Wedgwood, and of course, a great young Donald Sutherland, who's still doing it. It's all directed by Robert Aldrich. The film involved a top-secret mission done before the Normandy invasion, where a group of hardened army prisoners were trained to conduct a suicide mission to stage an assault on a chateau in Brittany, and not Britney Spears either, when dozens of high-ranking German officers are meeting. The hope is that eliminating the leaders will help with the pending D-Day invasion, and those who survive are offered pardons. This film is a fantastic film, and Ayer will supposedly take the men on a mission story and inject his own voice into the mix. It will be contemporary with a multiculturally diverse cast, and it will be produced by Simon Kinberg, and Ayer will harken it back to the spirit of some of his earlier scripts like The Fast and the Furious and Training Day. So, and he'll be rewriting a script that was originally written by Marco Ramirez. This is being fast-tracked to be done sometime in 2020. That's next year. Robbie 3, you hear all of this.
Yeah.
You factor in that Simon Kinberg's coming off a couple of pretty bad X-Men movies. Yeah. David Ayer is still recovering from the Suicide Squad debacle, but he did have some fantastic movies before then. What's your overall thought when you hear this news?
My overall thought is I'm curious to see what these guys do outside of the comic book movie genre. I mean, obviously, Simon Kinberg, he's an Oscar-nominated screenwriter for The Martian. David Ayer, he wrote Training Day, which Denzel won an Oscar for. Yep. So these guys have a lot of caliber, a lot of weight behind them. I'm hoping we could see them go back to the peak of like their, creative excellence. Maybe the franchise thing wasn't really working out as much. I personally, especially for David Ayer, I'm a big fan of Fury, and that's what this movie really harkens to, for me at least. Like I could see him doing another war film that's just gonna like take the cake and just be something that is, because David Ayer has a very natural, like very real gritty style that you don't see in a lot of war movies. And Fury, for having as many big stars as it had, it wasn't commercial at all.
Yeah.
And I think, and there's literally a scene where there's 30 minutes of them talking to a French woman in an apartment because that's how brilliant it is. And I think he could bring that sensibility to The Dirty Dozen in a modern fashion. So I'm super excited about it.
Does this give you a pause coming off the heels of Kinberg and Ayer's kind of recent failures? Do you think this gives you a little bit of pause, see if they'll get it right?
To me, this is the best possible redemption hope because they're saying 2020, which means now, which means small budget.
I mean, 2020 is like a couple weeks away.
We're 2 weeks from 2020.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that means small budget. To me, that means a very contained thing. To me, that means every anti-franchise. And if I was an actor wanting to get away from all these franchise films, I would go with someone that's made Fury, which is brilliant. I'd go with someone that made End of Watch, which is super innovative. And Fury is a testament to how good he is with an ensemble. And movies like End of Watch and Training Day are how he can build a world. So to me, that looks great. And then Kinberg, when he's not working on franchise stuff, I appreciate. So the idea of those two combined, like I can totally see this drawing a lot of really good talent. So if someone wants to get out of all this franchise madness but still work with trusted behind the scenes folk, this is a great opportunity. And the people it's The Dirty Dozen. Like you get an opportunity here to be in a classic remake. You can bring in some giant stars. I hope he uses John Bernthal again. I hope he brings in Shia. I hope he brings in Brad Pitt. I'd love to see like Sterling K. Brown and something like this. I've been wanting Sterling K. Brown in a big franchise, not franchise in the traditional sense because he's in Black Panther, but in something that can do really well but be a gritty, real story, like something that's got a name to it. So I'd really love to see a strong cast come out of the names that are already attached.
I think this is a great point you bring up. Both of you bring up this idea that both of these gentlemen have a track record in grittier fare outside of the superhero world and have done really good work with that. Fury is one of my favorite films that nobody talks about and nobody gives enough props to. And there are some incredibly well-written scenes in that movie, incredibly tough action in that movie, a pull no punches approach, an authentically like despondent war movie, I thought, with still some heroic moments in it, but some great, interesting conversations had between these guys. Having served, I know every guy in that movie, and it's fantastic. And End of Watch is another one too. I think David Ayer, that's the one that I always go back to when I talk about David Ayer. Michael Pena, Jake Gyllenhaal.
And their friendship's so real in that movie.
It really is.
So
and that ending is like, no, we're not going to stroke your hand. We're not going to hold your hand or stroke your hair and make you feel good. This is what can happen. And this is the reality of it, and it's for effect. So if they're going to do that with Dirty Dozen, because remember, in Dirty Dozen, a lot of them die. So it's going to be like they did in Rogue One. A lot of them die, or all of them die. But you get this feeling of like, okay, if these guys are in charge of it, this will bring a bit of, I don't know, I want to say this correctly, maybe you guys get mad at me, I don't care, a bit of manliness to it, a bit of tough manliness to it, which some of these films have been coming through. People like Frank Grillo, people like Carnahan, they've been trying to bring this stuff back, more of a grittier manhood type of movie, and so why not? There's certainly a market for that.
Gavin
There's
Hood.
certainly, Gavin Hood, absolutely, who I just recently interviewed. He's great about this stuff as well. So bringing, I'm sure there are actors who will want to be parts of these projects, and certainly both of these gentlemen have experience with ensemble pieces and putting this together. So I'm excited about it overall because, just because you don't do good in the superhero or have some kind of stuff, it doesn't mean it erases the incredible list of accomplishments you've already done to establish your name in the business. So.
And I imagine with it being a release date that's so soon, there'll be less studio interference because they're making the movie at once.
Good point.
There's not going to have time for as much, like these notes. And we don't know how far along it is, but I imagine this will be the anti-franchise property that's drawing these two to it.
Yeah. And don't forget, he wrote, Kinberg wrote, Sherlock Holmes, X-Men The Last Stand. Oh, no, sorry, I don't want to throw that one. But Days of Future Past, which was fantastic.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He wrote some episodes of Star Wars Rebels, which people may not know. The Twilight Zone series that Jordan Peele just did. And he's been a producer on a number of things. And of course, David Ayer himself directed a number of great projects. So overall, I'm excited about this, and we'll see what happens. All right, let's go to some promo work. We've got more Collider content from me today, and especially this great thing that just dropped this morning, hosted by our own Coy Jandreau. Let's take a look at a quick preview of it.
Welcome to Comic Book Shopping. We are here at Golden Apple Comics in the heart of Hollywood. I am here with Yahya Abdul-Mateen II.
There we go.
That's right, Black Manta, and, spoilers for later, a character in Watchmen.
They don't know what's coming, and then boom. And I'm learning right now, by the way.
Yeah?
Yeah, this is a lesson. It sounds like The Matrix.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It does, doesn't it? Now, I haven't seen the last episode yet, so this whole thing has been like me dancing around knowing what happens, but will he spoil it in the episode? Probably not. But first, let's get some comics, man. Let's get some shopping.
Let's do it.
Oh, man. Fresh off the heels of that Watchmen finale. Now, I know he doesn't talk about the finale, but he does talk about it. Corey, you talk a little more. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II.
Brilliant, man.
Yeah.
We talked through episode 8, so there's spoilers through 8. So that is all in the episode. So if you haven't seen any Watchmen, don't watch it, which is hard for me to say because I had such a good time filming that one. But Watchmen's ruining other content for me, man. Like, I'm having a hard time watching movies. Other shows feel lesser. It's just, it's such a brilliant show that it's moved the bar in the same way Breaking Bad did for me nearly 10 years ago, in the same way Dark Knight did for me 15 years ago.
Yeah.
They're like, when there's a zeitgeist shift to that level in a pop culture thing, it really changes the landscape. And it was an honor to take both Damon and Yahya out comic book shopping because they're fixtures to this glorious show, and they're both so hungry for knowledge. And you can tell why they're both so successful. Is they just want to learn and grow. And Yahya, obviously a part of Aquaman as well.
Yes.
It was really cool to show him graphic novels that are off the beaten path and a little bit different than your standard fare, because Watchmen is certainly not a linear story.
Yeah.
So we got into like Animal Man and a lot of like the old Grant Morrison, like the old Grant Morrison Animal Man.
Yeah.
We get into Miracle Man, a lot of stranger early British 80s stuff, which I thought he'd dig. He's a Yale graduate with architecture. I'm like, the dude's so brilliant. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's dope.
So what do you think about that Watchmen stuff? Do you like that Watchmen stuff?
I love Watchmen. Are you kidding me? I've turned into a literal Watchmen psychopath over the past
dude, it's struggle, right?
Yeah, I've watched all the episodes at least 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah, I've read the comic. I've been reading the comic book over and over again, listening to the motion comic, literally the Zack Snyder movie we watched, everything, everything. I just turned into a geek again.
So I waited to do the Zack Snyder rewatch till the show ended because I wanted to keep my continuities a little separate. So I watched the first 6. They sent me the first 6, and then I had to wait for the world to catch up. So then I was like, how do I, I know what glory this is, but I can't talk about it. So then I reread the thing, watched it with everyone every Sunday so I could be part of the conversation. Now I want to do the Zack Snyder rewatch, and then I'll probably watch the show again.
Wow.
It's damn good.
RB3, I'm asking you one question.
Yeah.
If Succession and Watchmen are hanging off a cliff, who do you hate? Who do you save? Succession or Watchmen? Who do you save?
That's really tough. I gotta go with Watchmen on this one. Honestly.
Okay. One last question for both of you. Do you want a second season?
No.
In 10 years.
10 years.
I want a second season when it feels like the same length of time between the last time Watchmen was part of the cultural zeitgeist, because it'll bring people back to the show and bring people back to the graphic novel. Because right now people are picking up the graphic novel that hadn't. So I want there to be another these quick generations, and then I imagine we live in the world we live in. There will be other atrocities that need to be talked about in a way that gets the message across. Yeah. So I wouldn't mind something that really can breach that.
What do you think?
I can totally see that. No, I'm for selfish reasons, I would like a second season, but I know there's nowhere they could go that could possibly top where the first season left off right now. I think for me personally, I would like to see if they did a movie, maybe a continuation, an epilogue, only because there are just a few details. And again, I watched every episode, so I caught everything,
That El Camino thing, and they just give us that one little taste at the end.
Yeah. Just answer these couple little threads that I just want to see fulfilled.
2 things I'll say. I want the Lindelof seconds. I want the second season whenever Lindelof wants to do it. When he's ready to, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, I want him to, or if what happens at the end of the series actually comes true, then I'd like a showrunner to tackle those issues from a certain point of view, the same way they tackled racial issues as boldly as they tackled them in Watchmen, and as authentically and as honestly and as pull no punches approach that they had. I would like that to that particular. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just saying.
That ending, I had thought up until the last 10 minutes, I no matter how this ends, I'm good with the show ending here. And then because of the last 2 minutes, I was like, oh, I kind of want to show tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm really torn between my 10-year thing and my I want it immediately. But no matter what, I want someone that put the amount of life into it that Damon did. So I'd love Damon to come back, but the man has been making a Watchmen show in his mind for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to find someone else that is that invested.
The only other person I can think of is Noah Hawley.
I was just about to say Noah Hawley too. Yeah, I was literally just because when you watch Legion and you see how much he dissects just from from a side character like the Legion character himself, and he able to extrapolate as much as he extrapolates. I'm sure he'd have just as much fun with Watchmen as Damon Lindelof did.
And I wouldn't mind someone that's a completely different style of filmmaker. Like imagine if Nolan did TV, because the way he adapted Batman into his vision and like how crazy Inception is, or as Tenet, which drops soon, like the trailer drops soon. I wouldn't mind seeing someone that doesn't do that kind of content go to that kind of content to see how they play in that wheelhouse. But otherwise, it's so precious. I'm worried.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So you should see that. Watch the comic book shopping with Coy, with Yahya Abdul-Mateen II there on that thing. One of my favorite actors, certainly up-and-coming actors. And I was surprised to see him in Greatest Showman. I forgot he was in Greatest Showman. Oh, one of my favorite musicals. But it's good to see him building through and seeing what's coming next for him. I'm excited.
Candyman, Trial of the Chicago 7, a certain movie with a red or blue pill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. The Matrix. Yeah. That's right. He's involved in that as well. So much to enjoy about him. And one last plug. That's the top 10. That's right. Matt Nost and I are on Collider. Some of you may not know. We've been back for a few weeks now. Our new episode dropped today on the Collider Live YouTube channel. The audio version of it. For the video version is available for patrons, but the audio version is up. We're talking the top 10 Star Wars battle scenes in all of the Star Wars movies. Let's just say Matt and I had a lot of differences of opinion and rankings, and then had to hash them out at the end to put ours together. So please watch us there, or listen to us there, and watch us as well if you're a patron. Find out how to do that at www.patreon.com/the-top10. All right, let's move on to our next and last story. And this one comes from our own Jeff Snyder. Yeah. Well, Phil Lord and Chris Miller. And you know how much that hurt Jeff to type because he's not a big comic book fan. They are teaming up with the Ready or Not filmmakers, Radio Silence, on a bear-driven horror comedy that one trade describes as a cross between Good Boys and The Revenant. Universal has bought an untitled spec script from Jimmy Warden that Lord and Miller will produce with Chad Villella of Radio Silence, whose Matt Bettinelli, Olpen, and Tyler Gillette will direct. Aditya Sood, who runs the Jump Street Directors production company, Lord and Miller, brought the project to the studio and will also produce along with Brian Dufield. Universal executives Matt Riley and Christine Sun will oversee the project. Lord Miller, remember, signed a first look deal with Universal in early August after signing a massive overall TV deal with Sony Pictures Television. So this will be interesting as it goes along. But you hear this idea, of course, with Radio Silence and Ready or Not. That thing made $60 million with a tenth of that budget. It was made for $10 million, made 60. Pretty incredible. So you look at this, you like this combo. What do you think here?
I think it's a great opportunity to make something really weird. And I think we trust everyone involved. I think you can make your man bear pig. I think you can make your demon bear. And if we ever get that New Mutants movie, there's a lot of weird bear content. So I want there to be the Chevy Chase era vacation movies, but with a bear. I want this weird adventure out in the wilderness, and then a bear is the antagonist. So that would be your Revenant angle. But I want that 80s comedy flavor back. And I feel like for some reason that's what jumped to my mind when I heard this juxtaposition of content. As I would love to see whatever they make from that team up.
Yeah, what do you think here? Good Boys and Revenant combo. This is interesting.
Yeah, that's a weird combo. I never thought I'd hear those two movies in the same sentence, honestly. But no, I'm actually really looking forward to it. Obviously, like Lord and Miller, they've have a great experience in animation, from the Lego movie to obviously Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Even though they didn't direct it, they produced it. And then to their R-rated comedy perspective, like 21, like 22 Jump Street. So I think they could add something really fun and original to this. Obviously, the directors of Ready or Not, Radio Silence. I didn't know it was their actual name, by the way. That's really funny. I'm curious to see where that goes, because I really enjoyed Ready or Not. I thought it was a really poignant commentary, on the society in terms of class and everything like that, but it made it in a really fun, horrific kind of way. So I'm curious to see where they go. They obviously have a knack for the genre of horror comedy. I'm ready to see that continued with whatever bear-driven content they want to give us.
You say you want to see an 80s kind of approach to it. What would you want to see, RB3?
I always thought if I'm doing a bear-driven horror comedy, it gotta be two bears. They gotta go back undercover in high school.
Oh, okay, good call.
They gotta team up to figure out the underground bear.
That gritty Yogi remake.
Yeah, the gritty Yogi Bear remake, exactly. Hey, and then at the end, 106 of their bear friends come and they gotta fight them. And
I deserve that. I'll take that.
Second one, same thing happens. They just go to college.
Yeah, same thing. It's almost a remake of a remake.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is how good they are at metamodernism. What Lord and Miller do is so highbrow in its lowbrowness. They make things that sound horrible on paper somehow work. Like a Lego movie shouldn't have been as good as it was. Spider-Verse, I think, is the best Spider-Man movie. They do things that are damn near impossible. So when I hear this, I somehow think they're gonna make like what Scary Movie 1 almost was. Yeah. They're gonna make something that's a commentary on a current genre and type, but make it in a really inventive way where when you're done at the end, you're like, why was that amazing? So when I hear if this was a log line from any other filmmaker, it'd be like, oh, Walmart man, like that's where that's going. Yeah. But instead, since it's them, I'm like, oh, that's gonna be great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at 21 Bridges, the last thing they produced didn't do so well, $33 million budget. I think it's around $26 million domestically. So unfortunately, they didn't quite get there. But this feels like the right combo in terms of, I'm sorry, that's the Russo brothers doing that. But I mean, Lord and Miller, of course, have their own kind of, and I was trying to compare them. Russo's and Lord and Miller kind of like their own brand name when they put their stamp on something.
Exactly.
And this feels right. This feels interesting to me for them to work with. And kudos to Radio Silence for waiting for the right situation to come along. And you're right, Coy, the highbrow and the lowbrow approach, certainly Ready or Not had that kind of approach to it as well, and was a surprise. And the fact that they understand the genre, can find the humor within the genre, and still respect the genre and all the beats of the genre like that, you got an idea that maybe they'll do the same thing here with a horror bear comedy. Certainly they made a horror marriage comedy that was very funny. So having the resources and the knowledge and the experience and intelligence of Lord Miller behind you as well can only elevate you, if you're Radio Silence, to even more prominence, more notoriety, and more fame. So why not? And get more projects done down the road. And soon they'll be signing their own first look deals, possibly on film and television. So I like this idea. It's a good combo as well. Same thing with the David Ayer story. Nice combos of people coming together with same sensibilities.
And it's a similar story to the David Ayer story, where it's people that are known for their giant genre content making a different choice and getting some other content out. And I feel like 2019 has been a great year for genre content, and people aren't giving credit to all the smaller movies. Like everybody says mid-budget film is dead, but there's, Peanut Butter Falcon, Honey Bull, half the movies in the theater right now are really incredible mid to small budget film. And some of my favorite movies this year were less than $40 million. So I feel like there needs to be a little bit more attention drawn to the fact that isn't dead. That isn't a lost art.
Right.
Uncut Gems. Uncut Gems, I think a lot about too. And, it's crazy. When you think about Phil Lord and Chris Miller as these two creative powerhouses as they are in Hollywood, it's also very important to remember that these guys came from TV. The fact that you could recruit talent, like you said, the Russo brothers comparison is also a good comparison. People who came from TV and made this jump into film. But the fact that they have such a presence, the fact that Lego Movie almost received universal public outcry for not being nominated for an Oscar. Into Spider-Verse won an Oscar, and they got to stand on stage for that. Yeah. So, and that's not even to mention the other things that they've had hands in producing, and things that, listen, I don't know how Disney feels about the whole Solo situation now, but I think they came out on the winning end of it. So I'm happy to see the success of like originality and young voices, especially to Radio Silence too, because I like seeing indie filmmakers get that chance.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. I mean, this is obviously just an announcement of what they're putting together. We'll see what they get together. We'll see what the cast is, and we'll see what this is all about. And this is going to have some fun adventure to it, and even maybe even a lesson at the end. Because as great as Spider-Verse was, what really sold it to a lot of people was that emotional message that Miles has, suffering the loss of what he loses in the film. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, I don't know what you're doing. You need to watch it. But also the connection with his father, like that gets explored. For as great as the animation is and the adventures and the different characters and whatever, it's really that heart of that story that got people to keep coming back and loving that movie as much. And so hopefully they'll find it amongst this horror bear comedy, some real love and vulnerability within it. All right, let's move on here. Did you guys see the Onward trailer? Yeah. Any thoughts here?
I mean, it's tricky because it's Pixar, so I just assume yes.
Yeah.
The first trailer didn't really grab me. The D23 footage, I was interested, but I wasn't It wasn't a must-watch. This is tracking closer to my sensibility. Like, it's still not my thing. It's not my genre. I'm there because it's Pixar. This trailer got me closer to being excited. Like, I'm now interested beyond just the name.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this too. It's actually kind of great to see Pixar back into their originality back. I don't know. Because usually they'll have, I think this is coming out in the same year that Soul is also coming out with Jamie Foxx. So I'm kind of wondering, sometimes they have one commercial and then one kind of more original, Oscar baiting one. This one looks like it could lean more on the commercial side, at least compared to the Soul trailer. The Soul trailer looks absolutely phenomenal to me. But Onward also looks amazing too. I like the idea of them returning to mystical, creatures in the same way that Monsters, Inc. is one of my favorites. And I hope to see what they're going to explore in the fantasy genre. Whereas something like Brave was also a fantasy movie, but I didn't really enjoy it as much because I felt like it diverted too much. It tried too hard to be like a Disney film. This looks like its own original thing.
Soul, the problem for me is Soul looks like it was made for me. Like, it's an existential crisis in a movie. Like where like Inside Out is one beautiful thing. This looks like Outside In. Like, I'm so excited to watch Outside In, like this abstract concept with so many strange ideas. And the cast in both of them is great. So I think that I hadn't thought of that. I think the reason I'm not more excited for this is because Soul's the same year. So I'm like, but what about over there? That's way more my thing. The cast in both is great, though. I'm really excited to see Tom Holland and Chris Pratt team up.
Yeah, and I like this. The second trailer I think was great because for me, I didn't know that one of the kids didn't know his father, right? I knew this was a mission about trying to restore their dad or their dad's memory or the idea of their dad. But I didn't know that one of those kids didn't know their father. So that trailer presenting that is kind of very interesting. It puts a whole new spin to this quest. It's more than just, we want our dad back for a day. This is more like, I want to know my father, which I didn't get a chance to know before he died. And some children out there never got to know their one parent or another, possibly because of passing either during childbirth or passing early on while you were a baby, for whatever reasons. And so that's a journey I've never seen in a Pixar movie. So that could be interesting to explore, which is the Tom Holland journey, along with the Chris Pratt being the funny kind of older brother, the kind of Chet of the situation from Weird Science. So to me, that excites me on so many levels. So yeah, I like this trailer. It's the best thing I've seen to promote Onward yet, and got me excited to see it, because that's the thing that always sells the Pixar movies, is the emotional stories of the characters. We always love that, and they certainly pull no punches sometimes. That first 10 minutes of Up will break you in half, certainly. So we'll see.
I'm terrified I'm going to be crying in 2 cartoons.
Right? I know, 1 year.
Soul.
Yeah.
I'm also curious how a body comedy translates in animation, because body comedy is usually really funny because it's got like the visual jokes, the physical humor. I don't think I've ever seen a body comedy done animated, so I'm curious what the weight of that's going to feel like, if we're going to be able to empathize with legs.
So there's certainly some Weekend at Bernie's moments.
Oh, it's 100%
without that trailer. So
so what's that going to be like animated? So I'm really curious how that translates. And everybody knows the Chris Pratt character. Everybody's got that front of the van. So I'm curious.
Absolutely. Agreed. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this. So we turned off the live chat because we didn't want to get anything spoiled or any kind of issues. So I think we're going to wrap it up a little bit early. Thank you all so much for joining this live episode of Collider Movie Talk. Always means a lot when you take the time to watch us or to listen to us on the podcast feed as well. And I hope you enjoyed our thoughts on all the subjects we talked about today. Coy, where can they find you, brother? Thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. Find me here today, Collider Heroes. Find me on Comic Book Shopping. Find me on the Twitter and internets, Instagram at Coy Jandreau, CoyJandreau.
Yeah, and don't forget to watch that Comic Book Shopping that is out now on YouTube. RB3, brother, always great to sit down with you.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Thank you, man. Where can they find everything you do?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, at Director RB3. You can also find my YouTube channel, First Cut. Me and Ace from Jedi Council, we have an amazing podcast where we talk about the deeper meanings of filmmakers and franchises and all that stuff, so you should definitely check that out.
Another cut, right?
Yeah.
Deep cut, Snyder cut.
First cut.
Give me that Lord Miller cut.
Big Lord Miller cut.
Snyder cut. Give me that Lord Miller cut.
Yeah.
Forgiven cut. Who knows? Thanks everybody for watching again. Thanks to Adam Smith in the booth. Thanks to Thad Williams for prepping everything for the show today. Really appreciate it. And Perry Nemiroff will be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. PT, to host this sucker tomorrow and join us then. Until then, have a great rest of your day, and I'll let you know what we all think about Star Wars.